The early 2000s were a golden era for RPGs, but in 2003, Star Wars Knights of the Old Republic took the genre to a galaxy far, far away, creating an experience that was as groundbreaking as it was unforgettable. Set 4,000 years before the rise of the Galactic Empire, KOTOR, as it's known, gave players the freedom to shape their destiny as a Jedi or Sith, with moral choices that impacted the fate of the galaxy. Developed by BioWare, it wasn't just a game, it was a masterclass in storytelling, character development, and player agency, earning its place as one of the greatest RPGs of all time. Today, we're venturing back to explore the history of Knights of the Old Republic, its innovative design, and its impact on gaming and the Star Wars universe. So grab your lightsaber, choose your path, and join us for today's journey down memory card lane. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening. I hope these words find you well. Hello and welcome to the 255th episode of our video game history podcast, A Trip Down Memory Card Lane. Each week, we'll tell you a story relevant to the current week in gaming history. It can be about a game or the people who have created it. It can be about a console or the technology that brought it to life. We often talk about the companies that bring it all together, making our hobby video games a reality. While telling you each story, we hope to teach you something new about the topic, what it took from the world as its inspiration, or what it gave back to the world in its legacy. Today, we are diving into Star Wars Knights of the Old Republic, BioWare's groundbreaking 2003 role playing game that let players shape their destiny in a galaxy far, far away. With its deep storytelling, unforgettable characters, and innovative mechanics, KOTOR, as it's known, became a cornerstone of role playing in Star Wars history. I'm David Casson, and as always, I'm joined by my co host, who'd probably fall to the dark side just for the cooler lightsaber. He's my brother, Rob Casson. Rob, do you think you'd actually learn how to master the Force, or would you just kind of end up Force choking the wrong person?
A little bit of both, Dave.
Yeah, definitely. You don't think that the Force choking the wrong person would end you?
I mean, it can at least wait until after I've mastered the Force. And then, there's still going to be someone who's better.
There was always someone who's better.
Indeed.
That's kind of like the theme of the Star Wars series in a lot of ways, isn't it? Like every time someone's on top, someone else that's better falls into a hole somewhere.
You know, part of me does disagree. I don't necessarily think that Luke was better at the time. I just think that he was able to survive long enough to change his dad's heart.
All right, fair enough. Now I'm going to be thinking about what I just said for a while because there's some merit to it, but I agree with you. There's also not merit to it. But it really does feel like every time they come up against like this is the ultimate bad guy or this is your ultimate hero, someone else comes along like, no, this is your ultimate bad guy.
Hey, we just call it Force creep,
Yeah,
power creep, whatever you want to refer to it as, I mean,
that's
it's a way to keep the thrill alive. Because if there wasn't a bigger batter, what are you doing?
true statement. We're here. It's KOTOR finally.
Indeed, years later.
The
Holy crap.
only episode we've ever skipped ever.
Mm-hmm.
And I played it for finally from beginning to finish. Didn't just try it. I have played the entire game now.
Well, I'm sure the fans would love to hear all about it, but I think first we should tell them about our current week in gaming history.
Why don't you take it away?
All right, Dave, well, kicking it off on July 16th, 1981, Nintendo released Game & Watch Octopus, one of the standout titles in the handheld series created by legendary designer Gunpei Yokoi. In this underwater challenge, players take on the role of a diver retrieving treasure from the sea floor, all while evading the grasping tentacles of a massive octopus. The objective is simple: snag gold and return safely to the boat. But as the octopus becomes faster and more aggressive, the tensions ramp up. Like many Game & Watch titles, Octopus blended minimalist design with addictive gameplay, showcasing the kind of elegant simplicity that helped establish Nintendo's dominance in the handheld market. We explore the origins of the Game & Watch series and Yokoi's innovative design philosophy back in episode 209. So check that one out if you want a deeper dive into where
Ooh.
it all began.
That was a good one.
Indeed, it
What
was.
is his design philosophy? I always liked it. It's lateral thinking with withered technology.
Exactly. And
Yes,
boy,
that.
does he do a great job of it.
It's such a weird phrase, and I love it. So it always sticks out to me.
It is fantastic. Just, a great way to look at it, and clearly has been successful.
Yep.
On July 14th, 1993, Super Mario All-Stars was released for the Super Nintendo Entertainment System, bringing 4 of Mario's biggest adventures into the 16-bit era with a fresh coat of paint. This beloved compilation included Super Mario Bros., Super Mario Bros. 2, Super Mario Bros. 3, and The Lost Levels, the previously Japan-only sequel to the original game. Each title was completely overhauled with updated graphics, enhanced music, and new quality of life features like save slots, all while preserving the tight gameplay that made them classics in the first place. Super Mario All Stars was a celebration of Mario's 8-bit legacy, and for many players, it became the definitive way to experience those early platforming adventures. Critically acclaimed and a commercial hit, it set a gold standard for video game compilations, and it further solidified Mario's legacy as the face of Nintendo.
That was a good. Uh, that was a great compilation, actually. Like, I remember when it came out. I think it was our first like Mario compilation. Now we've got a bunch of them, but I think that was our first Mario compilation, and that was a lot of fun. Also, it was exciting because we got the Lost Levels, and that's what everyone was excited for because we hadn't gotten to see those before. So,
Yeah, I'm sure it was pretty awesome, but when I think All Stars, all I can think of is the Sunshine 64 and the other one. So, yeah.
yeah.
Isn't that also All Stars, or am I misremembering the title?
What what was All Stars?
Wasn't it Super Mario 64, Sunshine,
3D
and
All Stars.
3D All Stars? Gotcha. That's why I was confused.
Yeah, the
I
new
was
one
like, you
is.
know what? Maybe it's just that I misread the name, or I misremembered the name. But you're right. It is 3D All Stars.
Yep, it's 3D All Stars. That's rare if you have it. I still have a sealed copy of it somewhere.
Ooh, fancy that. I have an open copy.
Yeah, I never opened mine.
Ah,
Obviously,
I play the Super Mario 64 all the time.
that's cool. That's cool. If it wasn't rare and worth like $100, I might open one or buy another one just to have one to play. But for the time being, I'm gonna leave mine sealed. So
Fair enough, Dave. And with that, our next topic on July 17th, 1997, Everybody's Golf, known as Hot Shots Golf in North America, teed off on the original PlayStation, offering a fresh and accessible take on the sport for gamers of all skill levels. Developed by Camelot Software Planning and published by Sony Computer Entertainment, the game blended lighthearted charm with surprisingly deep golf mechanics. Its intuitive 3-click system swing made it easy to pick up, while its colorful characters and vibrant courses kept things fun and engaging. Everybody's Golf quickly found its niche as a laid back yet satisfying sports title, appealing to both casual gamers and golf fans alike. Its success led to a long running franchise that's become a mainstay on Sony consoles, celebrated for making golf feel welcoming, playful, and endlessly replayable.
I love Hot Shots Golf. I think I've spent more time playing Hot Shots Golf than any other golf series ever. And I played a lot of Tiger Woods, so it might be close. But there's just something about how good of a golf game it is while not taking itself too seriously that makes that so much fun to play over and over and over again.
I absolutely agree. I was thinking, I actually kind of remember that when you used to have people over to the house here, we would do hot shot
We
golf with everyone.
we would we
So,
would, and I remember every time we'd hit the ridiculous shots, like the sound and the stuff would come up, and we'd all like get up and cheer. It was such it
oh
was
yeah.
it was so it was so ridiculously exciting. Like it shouldn't be that exciting, but it was that exciting.
Hey, they knew how to hit the mark, and they sure did.
Oh, we had so much fun playing that for sure.
Next, on July 18, 2002, Super Mario Sunshine was released for the Nintendo GameCube in Japan, giving Mario fans a sun soaked twist on the classic platforming formula. Developed and published by Nintendo, the game whisked Mario away to the tropical Isle Delfino for what was supposed to be a relaxing vacation. Until he's framed for polluting the island and must clean up the mess. Armed with the Flood, or Flash Liquidizer Ultra Dousing device, Mario sprays water to wash away sludge, defeat enemies, and navigate complex platforming challenges. With its bright visuals, inventive use of water based mechanics, and sprawling open level design, Sunshine brought a fresh feel to the Super Mario series. Though it was a departure from the traditional formula, it became a beloved GameCube staple and continues to stand out for its creative risks and tropical charm.
GameCube staple, yes. I will say I don't think it's very popular like when it's put up against all the other Mario games. It's probably one of the least popular Marios. With that being said, I particularly really enjoy it, which is probably why I wrote it in a positive light because I actually genuinely do enjoy Super Mario Sunshine. I thought it was very unique and a lot of fun because of it.
It's one of the ones that I replay, and that's why I got 3D All Stars, like we talked before. So I'm a big fan of it too. I can get the hate, but I don't. I'm not one of those people. I really think the game was good. So that's just
Yep.
my opinion, not yours.
There you
Do
go.
with it what you like.
There you go.
Last up for this week in gaming history, on July 15th, 2004, Shin Megami Tensei Digital Devil Saga was released for the PlayStation 2 in Japan, offering a bold and atmospheric spin-off of Atlus's long-running RPG series. Directed by Katsura Hashino, the game transported players to the desolate world of the Junkyard, where rival tribes battled for survival and the promise of ascension. The twist? Its characters transform into demons and gain power by devouring their enemies.
Nice.
Departing from the traditional demon recruitment system of the mainline Shin Megami Tensei games, Digital Devil Saga focused on a tighter, party based narrative with themes of identity, evolution, and morality. Its rich storytelling, haunting soundtrack, and stylish combat earned it praise from both fans and critics, eventually spawning a direct sequel that completed the saga. We recently discussed the career of director Katsura Ashino in episode 251, so check that out to learn more about the creative force behind this cult favorite. And with that, Dave, I think it's time for today's topic.
I think I would agree that it's also time for today's topic. It was 30 years ago in 1995 that Ray Mizuka, Greg Zeshik, and Augustine Yip founded BioWare, not knowing at the time that they were starting what would become one of the most successful studios in the video game industry. At the time, they were simply three medical students with backgrounds in programming that they were putting to use creating educational software for their medical program. And these included thrilling hits you may remember, like Acid Base Simulator and Gastroenterology Patient Simulator.
Oh man, GPS, love
That's the
that one.
best one. That's the highlight of that whole series.
You know it, man. It was a great title. Go check
So
it out.
so while developing GPS, I like that, which was more medical simulator than straight educational title. They kind of realized that they enjoyed developing the game aspect, so to speak, as opposed to the educational one. And they were all fans of video games themselves, so they came to the conclusion that they wanted to put their money and knowledge together and create their own video game, their first game. This was kind of as they were graduating and into the period after they graduated from medical school. So, in case you didn't know, and we've talked about this before, they are referred to as the Doctors, the three guys who co founded BioWare. Now, we've got 250 plus episodes of video game history. We've covered this before. We've covered other parts of BioWare's history. Most recently, in episode 225, we covered the development and legacy of Baldur's Gate. And back in episode 169, we also covered much of this beginning story and their development history of Mass Effect. So if you kind of like to dive deeper into this point in time, you have a few other points of reference to go back on if you'd like to learn more about the company. It's really not the focus today, so we're just kind of going to flirt through it just so you can kind of establish a timeline for everything. Um, BioWare's first shot out of the gate was a mech simulator, similar to the Warrior series. It was called Shattered Steel, and it never really amounted to that much as a game in itself. But what came after it really ended up putting BioWare at the map. And Shattered Steel was really important because of the relationship that BioWare developed, through the development process with their publisher, which was Interplay. Much of the team at BioWare were fans of role-playing games, both, pen and paper role-playing, dice role-playing, tabletop role-playing. There were a lot of role-playing fans in the studio. And so after Shattered Steel was finished, well, even before Shattered Steel was finished, to be honest with you, they knew that they kind of wanted to create a role-playing game for their next project. And so they kind of went back to Interplay, who again that was their publisher for Shattered Steel, and they kind of expressed the notion that they were interested in moving into role playing games. And so BioWare basically took money from Interplay. Interplay gave them money for what they kind of called exploratory development. And through this relationship and the money they were given, BioWare was able to kind of put together a tech demo based on their vision. An engine, a demo called Battleground Infinity, the Infinity engine. And coincidentally, at about the same time this is happening, Interplay had really just acquired the license for creating games in the Dungeons and Dragons universe, right? And so when they saw BioWare's demo, the Battleground Infinity demo, they knew that it was going to be a good fit for the Dungeons and Dragons license. And so, really, for the next 3 years, the team at BioWare turned Infinity into a game that is set in the Forgotten Realms. And that is Baldur's Gate, which really ended up revitalizing the PC role playing genre. Just absolutely, reviving what was kind of a dead. They were in a slog at the time, and Baldur's Gate really put some pizzazz, put some pep in their step. And so suddenly PC role playing was popular again, basically thanks to Baldur's Gate. It also made BioWare a household name. Baldur's Gate was a best selling title in numerous countries, and it won tons of accolades, including Role Playing Game of the Year. So, I mean, BioWare, it really put BioWare on the map, right?
I would say so, yeah.
So, after developing Baldur's Gate, BioWare took their Infinity engine and they started applying it to other parts of the D&D universe, along with other studios. There was Planescape Torment, there was the Icewind Dale series, and aside from these, they partnered with other studios to continue to expand on the Baldur's Gate series. There were expansions for the original Baldur's Gate, and then they moved on to work on Baldur's Gate 2. And as all this is happening, it's also a successful period for their publisher Interplay, not just because these were all successful titles that Interplay was publishing, but because Interplay was also working with other studios who were seeing success as well. For instance, Baldur's Gate came out about the same year that Fallout 2 came out, which was an Interplay title. I think 1998 was Baldur's Gate, 1998 was Fallout 2, and Fallout 1 was 1997. So you've got the Fallout series, which is a great role playing series, right? And you've got the Baldur's Gate series, which is a fantastic traditional D&D role-playing series that Interplay is publishing. And suddenly, like, Interplay themselves is becoming a name for these games as well. You know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely.
Despite this, despite all the assumed success that we perceive here, by the time Baldur's Gate was released, Interplay was actually struggling financially as a company and was on the verge of bankruptcy. For the next couple years, they tried various ways to remain solvent. They went public on the NASDAQ exchange to raise money. And as part of that, other companies kind of began to invest in what was now Interplay Entertainment. When they went public, they went changed their name from Interplay to Interplay Entertainment. And as companies began to invest in Interplay and um, infuse money into the company and ideas, Interplay still continued to struggle. They didn't have money. They started missing royalty payments to some of their partners. As a result, some of their relationships with their development studios began to strain, like their relationship with BioWare. And on top of that, one of the ways that they decided to find money was they started sub licensing distribution. So, they were originally going to license, or they were going to be the publisher for, say, Baldur's Gate everywhere, but then they would go to like Vivendi or Virgin, I can't remember which, and say, okay, you are now the publisher in Europe, right? So they would sell the license for other companies to distribute these titles elsewhere as another way of bringing money in. So between the missed royalty payments and all the messy sub licensing, it became a lot for companies that were partnering with Interplay, and so BioWare began looking for another partner, and they found one in Infogrames. Infogrames had just purchased the carcass of Atari, and they had just come to the understanding of what the name meant, right? Because at the time as a company, Atari was nothing, and that's a story for another time. But Atari was literally just a name, but it was a powerful name. And at first, Infogrames didn't understand that, but as they came to understand that, they started deciding that they were going to start releasing games under the Atari label. Now, eventually, they changed their name to Atari, and we have talked about that in an episode of Infogrames. But here, it was just the Atari publishing label. So BioWare was working on their next title, which was set in the D&D universe, a game called Neverwinter Nights. And so as they're working on Neverwinter Nights, they take it from Interplay over to Infogrames to finish it. So there's a lot going on, and it's messy, right? In the midst of all this that's going on, somewhere around late 1999, LucasArts, the company that was responsible for all of Lucasfilm's video game franchises, they were shopping around for a partner that could help them make a next generation console RPG. And they were offering up the license to work in the Star Wars universe in order to entice companies to work with them. And so, who better to create a next gen console role playing game than the company that had literally just released the role playing game of the year, you know?
Yeah, I would say that there's not too many better options.
So, LucasArts comes to BioWare and they say, hey, make me an RPG, just like the kind you've been successfully making, and set it in the Star Wars universe. Now, I would like to add real quick that during this time, BioWare was up to other things than just their role playing games. They had recently kind of gotten into console development. They were literally in the process of developing their first console title. It's a game called MDK2, Murder, Death, Kill 2. Fantastic series if you've never played it. So that MDK2 was literally their first console title, and they're already having to work out the kinks of console development through the process of working on MDK2, while they're also kind of putting all this work into making a new kind of role playing game in Neverwinter Nights. And so, really, at BioWare, in these two projects, you have the ingredients for what LucasArts is looking for, right? You
Yeah.
you have console development and you have a role playing game. And that's pretty much where BioWare started when they said yes to LucasArts. They knew from the get go that what they were setting out to do was to build a console accessible RPG that still had that BioWare touch, had all that detail and depth that their role playing games were really well known for. Now, the first emails between these companies are around October or November of 1999, like I said, late 1999. And so by the time the millennium 2000 rolls around, pre production on the game, which was tentatively titled in the beginning by BioWare, Age of the Jedi, has begun. So, as the team at BioWare begins to plan the game out, they had to, of course, decide what kind of Star Wars game they were making. And by kind, I mean realistically when, right? You have the original Star Wars titles, but now we're sitting down in early 2000, and that's roughly 6 months after Episode 1. Episode 1 was literally the summer of 1999. So, summer of 1999, Episode 1 releases in theaters, and 6 months later, we're talking about making a Star Wars video game. So now you also have some material from the prequels to work with. So what's it going to be? Now, LucasArts really made this decision easy for the team at BioWare because they only presented BioWare with two choices. LucasArts came out and said, you can make an episode 2 game, which of course would have to stick to the world, the storyline, so on and so forth of Star Wars Episode 2. Or you can go back 4,000 years. Yes, that's 4,000 years to a period that we've never really covered before. And of course, not covered before means that there's really nothing to compare to. There is really not an extensive framework that you have to work within beyond the bounds of the actual Star Wars universe itself, right?
Right.
And in this time period, the team saw the creative freedom to create as they pleased. And so they decided that they would be able to create content that was similar to the films, but different enough to stand on its own as a precursor to all of the movies. Now, with that being said, don't doubt for a second that LucasArts didn't have their finger on the pulse here. All concept work had to be sent back to Skywalker Ranch, which is where LucasArts' studio was, and it had to be approved for use. Now, Ray Mizuka in a later interview would go on to say that very little of their content was rejected, and the suggestions that LucasArts made were good suggestions that made the game better, and thus the BioWare team was always happy to get feedback from the ranch.
It's good to know.
For instance, one of the things that LucasArts did not like was the title, Age of the Jedi. That was rejected pretty quickly. Instead, they came to a consensus that this game would be called Star Wars Knights of the Old Republic. And so from this point on, I'm going to refer to it from its common name, which is its abbreviation, Knights of the Old Republic, and that's KOTOR, if you didn't know. We all call this KOTOR. I'm not going to call it anything else now, right? Right.
Sure, Dave.
Do you know anyone who calls it anything other than KOTOR?
I don't know anyone who calls it anything.
Yeah, that's a fair statement. So the design team there is working on laying out the story, but on the technical side of things, that team, the programming team that had to make decisions on the technical side of things. First, the where, right? Because what are we developing this for? We know we want it to be a console, next gen console, but next gen is going to be the Xbox, the PlayStation 2, the GameCube. Like, what are we doing with this, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so both studios came to an agreement after some discussions that they would develop this game for both the PC and the original Xbox. Now, the Xbox was chosen because, as we found out during the episode of the Xbox itself, it was basically a PC that was really just done up as a console. Its name, after all, is literally the Direct Xbox. And so the same DirectX that you use to develop on the PC could also be used to develop for the Xbox. And so development was incredibly easy for these two platforms. You were pretty much developing for both at the same time. Not quite, but close enough. In opposition, if they had decided to develop for the PlayStation 2 or the GameCube, those were completely different systems, completely different architecture. They would have to do a lot more work to get their PC game on those platforms, right? They also really enjoyed the fact that there wasn't any competition at the time on the Xbox. If they created this on the schedule that they had hoped to create it, this would end up being one of the earliest role playing games on the Microsoft Xbox, which, fact, it is. So, on the technical side, the team took the Aurora engine that had been developed for Neverwinter Nights and they completely rewrote it for this project. They turned it into what is now known as the Odyssey engine. And among the things that they put a lot of work into was the combat system. You a fan of the combat system in this game, Rob?
Compared to newer games, it is definitely dated, but I do think that it is a good system, especially if you like the ability to kind of stop and think about your actions.
I think it's really funny that you say that because it's not dated. Genuinely, it's not. I'll explain. So, remember that all of BioWare's experience up until this point is in the Dungeons and Dragon universe, right?
You know, I already have a feeling where you're going to go with that, and that is very fair. I am not normally a purveyor of those type of games, though.
That's exactly it.
Um,
That's
so yeah,
exactly it.
it feels dated to me just because I don't do that. But you're right, that is a very common trope for D&D style games.
But
So
and that's the point. That's the thing. So every single role playing game that BioWare had made up until that point was based on third edition rule book for Dungeons and Dragons. It was all Dungeons and Dragons rules, D20 rules at all, right?
right,
And to be honest, Knights of the Old Republic is no different. Now, I never put any thought about that into that as I played it. I legitimately never considered that in any way, shape, or form. So, this is kind of what I learned in this process. What the team wanted to do was they wanted to create something that took all of their previous experience, all of the groundwork that they laid out throughout their other role playing series, all of these combat systems that were that were based on D20 that they used in Baldur's Gate, Icewind Dale, etc., etc. They want to take that but present it in a cinematic manner, make it look and feel like Star Wars, like a movie, right? Because that's where the Star Wars universe exists. And so they created something that I genuinely think is a combat system that makes KOTOR feel like it's something that it's not. Because under the hood, it's the exact same thing. It's literally just third edition Dungeons and Dragons dice rolls that are made up to look pretty.
yeah, no, I definitely see that now that you're saying it. So wow,
And it's funny that you say that, you think about it, because I agree with you. Like, in some ways it gives off the perception that it's dated, but realistically, if you put it aside, Baldur's Gate 3 for instance, which is the same thing, their combat systems are incredibly similar.
yeah, I'm realizing that now. So
It,
whoops,
isn't that interesting?
yeah,
That is so
that's
cool.
I had not even considered that till now.
Now, of course, there's more work to do on the technical side beyond that, right? The Xbox is not a PC, so you kind of have to start talking about all the sacrifices that you make when you have to run your game on what's essentially a watered down PC. When you develop for PC, you want graphics. It's always about graphics, right? When you develop on PC, you tend to want to push graphics as far as you can. High frame rates, high resolution texture, high, that kind of stuff. But on the consoles, you can't do that. You can't push the limits of high resolution textures. You have to pare that all back. You want it to run smoothly, and so that typically involves pulling things back like resolutions and textures, right? And so that's some of the work that they had to put into this game when they were kind of transitioning it down to the console. Not only that, but again, this needed to be a console accessible RPG. So they had to put some time into making their own unique brand of role playing game work on a controller instead of the keyboard and mouse that they were all used to, right?
Right.
Now, while the team at BioWare was putting this all together, LucasArts was also at work on this game. LucasArts worked on all of the game's audio. KOTOR has 300 different characters and 15,000 spoken lines throughout its entire game.
Holy shit.
That's an impressive scope now, but for its time, it was incredible. Its entire script fills up 10 5-inch binders for those of you who need a visual representation.
Wow.
And
That's
then
a
and
lot.
it's 15,000 spoken lines is a whole lot. And then of course LucasArts brought in composer Jeremy Soule, who at this point in his career had a few other impressive credits under his belt. They included a few Freddy Fish games and Pajama Sam games. I know you're a fan of
Mm.
those, right?
Oh, I
And
definitely love me some Pajama Sam.
Putt Putt. Remember the Putt Putt games? He did music for those too.
I don't remember those too much.
Now I'm not kidding about those, but on Jeremy Soule's list of credits, games he's known for, I'd also like to include Total Annihilation, the real time strategy series, Icewind Dale, Rugrats in Paris, the Harry Potter video games. Oh, and Elder Scrolls Morrowind, Neverwinter Nights, and EverQuest Online Adventures.
Okay, all right. I'm familiar with a lot of those.
Yeah. And that was all before working on KOTOR. That was before KOTOR. Of course, now Jeremy Soule has included the rest of the Elder Scrolls game. He has done the music for Oblivion, Skyrim, and Elder Scrolls Online. Total Annihilation became the Supreme Commander, which we've played a ton of, have we not?
I'd say we played a good amount.
Yeah,
Yeah.
we played a bunch of that. So Supreme Commander is Jeremy Soule. Real-time strategy game Company of Heroes. The Dead Rising games are scored by him. I think two on, to be honest with you. I don't think the first one. There's a Warhammer game that's got his name on it. He did some music for World of Warcraft. I think the Panda one, Mist of Pandaria or whatever it is. He did it for
Hmm.
that expansion. Oh, and let's add last week's topic, 2006 Prey. Jeremy Soule did the music for Prey as well. So, needless to say, he's a very impressive composer um, with an incredible discography, right?
Yeah, definitely. With everything you've named, that's quite the damn list.
So, all these people came together to create Star Wars Knights of the Old Republic, also known as KOTOR, which finally released on July 16th, 2003. Rob, between the binders full of dialogue, the combat system dressed up like a Jedi duel, and the platform challenges, KOTOR really is one of those once in a generation projects that push BioWare into a whole new galaxy.
Yeah, and what blows my mind is that it all started with a few doctors making gastrointestinal simulators. Goes to show that if you're passionate about something, you can turn even the most unexpected beginnings into something amazing.
Exactly. And if you've got a story to tell, whether it's galactic in scale or grounded in everyday life, Zencaster is the tool that makes it easy to bring your podcast to life.
All right, Jedi Master of Podcasting, What makes Zencaster the chosen one?
Well, Zencaster is an all in one podcasting platform that lets you record high quality audio and video straight from your web browser. No technical training from the Jedi Academy required. You just log in, hit record, and go.
And after recording, it doesn't take a squad of droids to clean it up, right?
Nope. Zencaster's post production tools do it all, balancing your audio, removing background noise, and even trimming out all those filler words. It's like having your own behind the scenes Jedi Council polishing every episode.
And once my epic space opera is ready, what then? How do I launch it into the universe?
Easy. Zencaster lets you publish your podcast to Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and all the major platforms without even leaving their dashboard. Everything is streamlined and intuitive.
So, how do our listeners take their first step into a larger podcasting world?
Head over to zencaster.com/pricing and use our offer code all one word memory card lane for 30% off your first month of any Zencaster paid plan. Whether you're building a sprawling galaxy or just want to share your perspective, Zencaster helps you do it with ease.
So, if you are ready to be the master of your own podcasting destiny, Zencaster is the tool to make it happen.
I couldn't have said it better. Now, Rob, let's head back to the Old Republic and see how BioWare's bold new direction became a landmark in Star Wars storytelling. Let me start out by telling you that the initial first shipment of Xbox copies of this game sold out in 4 days.
Wow.
250,000 copies gone in 4 days.
Holy damn.
On the PC side, though, as we know, there was much more competition for this type of game, right? And while it sold well, it was really only the third best selling computer game of its release week. Because I was curious and I had to look it up. The Sims Making Magic was the best selling game of its week, and the original Call of Duty, like the very first Call of Duty, was number two. So,
All right. I at least know one of those.
The Sims Making Magic.
You know it, Dave.
Yeah, buddy. So a few years later, by mid 2006, roughly, the Xbox version had sold a total of 1.3 million copies, while the PC version only had sold about 470,000 copies. Just to kind of put things into perspective on where it was popular. Of course, by now, this many years later, we've sold over 3 million copies combined between the two platforms. So, I mean, it sold, it sells, it still sells, to be fair. And it was received well enough for its awards to include at least one coveted Game of the Year award. So, I mean, it did well. I mean, it sold pretty well and it won awards. Game of the Year is nothing to slouch at, you know?
No, definitely not.
I think it won 2 Game of the Year awards, if I'm not mistaken. Its success started a whole media franchise, and that now includes multiple video games. There are comic books. There's at least one novel. There are constantly talk about film adaptations which never pan out. And most importantly, this time period and these games have been integrated into the actual Star Wars canon. So we've talked before about how now Star Wars is a huge universe now, and like parts of this game, these games, I should say, because one and two have been integrated. Like they're found in it. You know, Rob and I have talked about, we've watched the Clone Wars, right?
Mm-hmm.
There is a deleted scene from the third season, I think, that is now out there and officially canon that talks about Darth Revan, who's a character in this game. Flashes back to something in it. Um, these characters are talked about. Some of the characters from the Old Republic are talked about in some of the future things. So we now have integration, and that's really important.
I
um
did not know that. Holy shit.
they they did release a sequel, KOTOR 2, Knights of the Old Republic 2, that was released in late 2004. That was developed by Obsidian Entertainment, and KOTOR 2 was their first game as a studio. Now, you might be asking yourself, why did BioWare give their sequel to their game of the year to a brand new studio, right?
Yeah, Dave, why did BioWare give their Game of the Year sequel to another studio?
Well, Obsidian was started by a bunch of Black Isle Studio employees right before Black Isle Studios closed. And Black Isle's pedigree includes a lot of games you might know, like the first two Fallout games. They get credit for creating the Fallout series. And also, Black Isle worked on a lot of titles alongside BioWare. They worked on the Icewind Dale series, they worked on the Baldur's Gate series. The reality of the situation is that BioWare and Black Isle had been working side by side for years. And so they weren't passing it over to an unknown studio. They were realistically passing it over to, a bunch of familiar faces that they had worked alongside through most of this journey. Now, there were plans to make a KOTOR 3, supposed to come out circa 2006, but those were scrapped. And the groundwork for KOTOR 3 actually became Star Wars MMO RPG, their massively multiplayer online role playing game, Star Wars The Old Republic. Now, Star Wars The Old Republic originally released in 2011, but it still exists today. It is there under a free to play model. So if you were interested in experiencing the time period known as the Old Republic, and you wanted to do, you could do KOTOR because these are still available. But you can also do this MMORPG that's readily available. I went on their website. They have they have a subscription based model, but they have free content too. So you technically don't have to pay to join the Star Wars universe, which is kind of cool. There are also comics. There's novels set in the Old Republic. So this time period is going strong in Star Wars lore. Now, as Rob said, right? Rob said that KOTOR feels really dated. Well, let's talk about KOTOR. Can we talk about KOTOR for a few minutes? Because that was the point of us skipping it last time, was that we couldn't talk about it at all. I'm gonna say, because we're kind of past the history part, there's no more history. We're going to talk about the game. I'm also going to give you a spoiler alert here because I want to talk about the game and the story itself. So if you're looking to play it and you don't want the story ruined for you, which is a fantastic story, you can pretty much stop listening to this episode right now. Next week, we're going to cover the U.S. national video game team. That's really all you need to know. So, uh, Rob, have you personally played through this game?
I've actually played through it twice, Dave.
You've played through this twice. Once light side, once dark side.
Yep.
Nice. Which did you prefer?
I don't really know that I have a preference. I think both are good in their own regard. Um, it's, obviously after the first time, the twist of who you are in the end is kind of lost on it. But it's still cool to just see how it differs from if you chose to be all light side or all dark side.
So let's talk about that because we gave spoiler alerts. I am really surprised, for as old as this game is, that I did not know the twist. Somehow, in this age of spoilers, I managed to not know one of the biggest twists in gaming 20 some years or however long it's been later, right?
Right. I mean,
Um,
I to be fair, I had no idea either.
I have seen this very frequently on lists that say like best twist in gaming, biggest twist in gaming, most iconic twist in gaming. Anytime one of those type of lists comes up, this is damn near close to the top. But I didn't know. I didn't know at all. I didn't know. So the moment when you realize, again, spoiler alerts, when you realize that the person you've been chasing essentially is yourself, that hit me like a ton of bricks, man.
Oh yeah. I mean, it's crazy because this whole time, everyone talks about who you are, not knowing that it's who you are, which, granted makes sense because of the mask. No one
Right,
would really know who you are behind the mask.
right.
But like you hear all this stuff and you're like, wow, this person is either really cool or really shitty, depending on your point of view. And then you come to find out it's you.
It's you. And what's like, I didn't see it coming. Like, of course there's a twist, right? Because like I said, I've seen it on so many of I've seen on so many different lists. I thought it was the Jedi chick, to be honest with you, because I knew there was a twist. So I did spend the whole time going, okay, she's really the bad guy, isn't she? Like she's about to turn on me any moment now. Like she's gonna turn on me and post we're here at the Jedi headquarters and the younglings are gonna pop out type deal, right? um I thought she was gonna flip on me at any time, and then we finally get to that moment, and the mask comes off, and it's you, and I was like, "Well, didn't see that coming." And I was like,
Yeah, no.
"That's a classic twist there." Like it's a classic twist, but at the same time, it's also like it's a trope. Like that's the people who complain about it like recognize the fact, like, okay, well, this is a thing commonly. You know what I mean? Like movies do it a ton. Um,
Do they? I'm thinking, I guess I really
Mem-
don't recall that being a thing.
Fight Club, Memento. Uh, I'm sure I could keep going, but those are a few movies where you find out that you're the what you've been chasing the whole time. Fight
Well,
Club is a great
I don't know what you're
example.
talking about with the first one, Dave. We don't talk about it.
Okay. All right. So I'm going to ask you this. I don't play bad in games. I don't know why, but my moral compass sucks, and I'm really uncomfortable having to play as a bad person. So I didn't go back and play the dark side, but I am really curious because at one point you get the choice, right? You're light or you're dark. So if you're dark, do you get to assume the throne? Like, do you go back to assume the throne?
I'm still working on my dark side playthrough.
Oh,
I haven't gotten to Malik yet. I am
that's what I
almost
want
there.
to know. That's exactly what I want to know. I'm like,
Yep.
that was my that was like I was thinking the whole time, like if I was dark, and there's a moment where you can either like accept or deny the dark side, right? And I was like, if I played this dark the whole time and I'm going to accept it, like, am I once again the strongest Sith in the world? Like, that's what I want to know if happens. So
Um, I can't tell you today, but hey, for all our listeners who want to find out that haven't played through this themselves and don't feel like just going on the internet and looking, uh, you know, just keep listening in a few weeks and I'll have an answer for you
there
because
you go.
I'm currently through that. And I've also started playing The Sith Lords, which is the sequel.
Yep. Is it worth playing?
If you enjoyed the first one, absolutely. The story is just as good. I don't know what the twist is yet, obviously, just being my first time playing through it, but I am definitely enjoying it so far.
Now, I think Rob is right in a lot of ways when he says that the game is dated. It definitely feels dated. It it looks like a game from 20 years ago. It's slower. It plays like a game from 20 years ago. Even though it's based on the D&D rules and the combat system is similar to Baldur's Gate 3, which I'm going to compare cuz this is where we are. Like there's a clear difference between those two games, right?
Undeniably.
Now, if that's something that bothers you, they have come out and said that they're making a Star Wars Knights of the Old Republic remake. So they're currently remaking the first game. Now, it's kind of in development hell at the moment. It was supposed to come out this year. It's not going to come out this year. We don't know when it's come out because it's apparently changed studios and directors, and it's one of those messy situations that we don't know what the heck's going on. Now they're saying maybe 2027 is kind of what it looks like, but who knows? It is going to be a timed exclusive for PS5, meaning it'll have PS5 exclusivity for who knows 6 months a year, and then they're going to release it for all the other platforms. But if you're wanting to experience this story, but you're worried that the age of it is going to hinder the enjoyment for you, just wait a little bit longer because they're trying to bring this story into the modern age. And within a couple years, you might actually have the ability to play it with those uh, deficiencies wrapped away. You know what I mean?
Absolutely. And for those of the listeners who are worried by hearing of all of the conundrums behind the development, well, you clearly haven't been listening to this show long enough because we have that happen a lot.
We
So there's
do.
still hope that this remake will become a reality.
If it makes anyone feel any better, it's not a 3D Realms game, so there's a chance.
Exactly. So just hold out hope and let's hope for this remake. And hope is what guides us all.
I don't regret putting the time into this game. I enjoyed it. I enjoy it for what it is, which is a great role playing game that was made in 2003. I think is when this came out, right? Um,
Correct.
and
July
so
16th.
there you go, July 16th, 2003. It's a fantastic game inside, and I can see how historically it would have fit in that time period. And I remember because I was at college at the time, and a lot of my friends played this, and it was recommended to me back then. I don't know why I never picked it up back when, but I can see why everyone was excited for it. It's definitely a fantastic game, a fantastic Star Wars game, which the likes of which we really didn't have up until this point. Um, and it's got some great historical context. It started a whole universe that's now tied into Star Wars lore. So uh, it's great, fantastic, right?
I absolutely agree on that one. I mean, hey, a game that I want to play a second time through after just finishing the first, that says a lot.
Uh, I don't know when I'll get around to play KOTOR 2. I do plan on playing KOTOR 2. The If you read the critic reviews on KOTOR 2, the story is generally like people kind of like the story of KOTOR 2 better. It's more mature, more refined, more in depth, because of course every studio is going to take what they learned from the first game, hopefully take what they learned from the first game and use that to better the second one. That seems to be the case. And it doesn't rate as well across the board. I think KOTOR 1 is like a 94 aggregate on Metacritic, and KOTOR 2 is like an 86. So, I mean, overall, critics and players didn't like it as much, but um, the story's more nuanced, is what my understanding is. So, and the choices are more impactful. But again, that's just a refinement of what you learned the first time around.
Oh, absolutely. I know that as I'm playing through two, I always get so worried that I drop influence with one of the characters in the game, and it's like, oh crap, do I got to reboot and try again and get the good influence?
Yeah, yeah, for
So
sure.
it's stuff like that, the little things that just you change, you add, and you know you see if people like it.
Absolutely. Well, there are a lot of other stories tied and interwoven with this one. We talked about Black Isle Studio and the first two Fallout games. We did a Fallout episode. We have done episodes on other parts of BioWare's history, like they're later on when they created Mass Effect, or earlier on when they created Baldur's Gate. So, a lot of other stories if you'd like to learn more about BioWare at other points in time. And of course, you can check out all these episodes by going to our website, which is www.memorycardlane.com. Rob, what else can people do on our website?
You can find a calendar of our future episode topics to know what game topics we are going to be covering. You can find a link to our Discord where you can come chat with Dave and I about either episode topics or whatever else gaming related. Maybe not, who knows? You won't know till you join. You can find a link to our Patreon where you can get access to ad-free and unedited versions of all of our episodes. And you can find links to our social media where I am on several platforms as Rob_O_Raptor and Dave.
I can be found on various platforms as David is wrong. Each week, we'll tell you one story relevant to current week in gaming history. This week, we looked at Star Wars Knights of the Old Republic, a role playing game set in the Star Wars universe. While telling you our new stories each week, we hope to teach you something new about the topic, what it took from the world as its inspiration, or what it gave back to the world in its legacy. One of the best parts about doing this podcast week after week after week is when we sit down to research a new topic, we always learn things. And when we learn things, I get excited by the fact that we get to teach you these things. It's this fantastic cycle of us learning and teaching and learning. That's the way the pursuit of knowledge should always be. In celebration of that fantastic cycle, we like to go round table and talk about what we've taken away each week. So, Rob, what did you learn today?
Well, Dave, as simple as it seems, you absolutely blew my mind away when you explained that the combat system is just D&D.
I know. I had to
I
stop.
mean,
I'm gonna take that too. I'm gonna take that too. Like, had no idea.
I'm literally sitting here playing 2 this last week, and I would keep rolling a miss, and I'm like, damn, like, how does this work? Like, it's so annoying. Why am I missing? And now you just explained it. It's just a dice roll. Sometimes the numbers are in your favor, and sometimes you're getting your ass handed to you.
It's and that makes so much sense when you put it in the context of that combat system. Like it moves, but you also it stops to give you the time to be like, oh, I'm gonna cast magical thunderbolt. You know what I mean? Like when you think about it in that context, like the combat system just makes absolute perfect sense. And I had zero ideas too.
I think the part of it that it is for me is that I don't really pause during combat a whole lot. I just set the four actions, and I'm like, oh yeah, this is good. And like, I never really thought of that you pause it, you decide on a roll or a move, and then you roll for it. It was always just click, 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 click. Hey, do this thing, do this thing, do this thing.
Me
I
too.
hit, I miss.
Absolutely.
So
Absolutely me too.
maybe it's just our play style. We're so used to that quick run and gun that we didn't take time to slow down and think about our actions.
Nope, we sure
We would
didn't.
not make good Jedi.
No, we would not make good Jedi. We would not get good Jedi. So, all right, Rob. Well, before I take it out of here and into next week, would you like to add anything to today's episode?
Well, I will say thank you so much to everyone for joining us as we journeyed back to a galaxy far, far away and a time a long, 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 long ago. We hope you enjoyed, and we hope that you continue to listen. So thank you.
As we extinguish our lightsabers and step away from the galaxy of the Knights of the Old Republic, we're reminded of how this masterpiece redefined, rather, storytelling in gaming. BioWare's epic adventure allowed players to forge their destinies in a way that few games had before. So, whether you're resisting the dark side, or in Rob's case, embracing it, always remember the force of choice in gaming. See what I did there?
I did.
Next week, though, we're putting away the lightsabers of Knights of the Old Republic to focus on the trailblazing competitors of the U.S. national video game team. Formed in 1983, this group of elite players didn't just showcase their gaming prowess, they became ambassadors for a budding global phenomenon. From high score battles to national pride, they laid the foundation for the esports we know and love today. So join us as we explore their rise, influence, and legacy on next week's high scoring trip down memory card lane. Do the thing.
Skibidi doo, da 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 da.